Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duck Bricks. I'm Chris, and over this past weekend at Brick World Chicago, I got a chance to sit down with my buddy Sean, aka BricksByMind, and interview a literal Ninjago legend. Dimi, who has designed sets for LEGO Ninjago for the past nearly 10 years, starting with one of the smallest sets in Hands of Time, and finishing with, of course, the Ninjago Legend's Guardian Dragon. This was a massive interview. It's actually around 30 minutes long, and so we decided to split it into two parts. Part of it is going to be on my channel, and the other half is going to be on Sean's channel, BricksByMind, linked in the description below. So, without further ado, let's jump on in and meet Dimi. Hey there, thanks for tuning in. Today we are sitting down with a LEGO Ninjago legend, and I mean that in the literal sense. This is Dimi, one of the most legendary LEGO designers who has been pretty much working on Ninjago for almost the past 10 years. You've done a ton of sets, and you were just showing us earlier at the premiere all the different sets that you had gotten a chance to work on, some of which are my favorites, like the Legacy Bounty. Easily top 5 Ninjago set, I think, for me.
If not number 1, even. Like,
maybe.
I find it so hard to rank them, but that's definitely really close if it's not number 1. Like,
nostalgia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we would love to sit down and chat with you all about the process of course, designing the new Monstrosity sets, but also just working on the Ninjago team in general. Really appreciate your time, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
It's a pleasure. I'm Dimitris. Dimi, as known in the community, because it makes things simpler. Yeah, as Chris said, I've been in Ninjago for 9.5 years. A few extra chains there. It's again, we'll see it around with the panels and everything, but it has been a blast for me to be in that space and to work on Ninjago, get to love Ninjago, get to know Ninjago, and be as involved as anyone can be on it and with it.
And on a similar note, you've mentioned that you are the current designer who's been on the team the longest, right?
Yes.
So there's like, of all the designers currently working on it, you were the first one there.
If I'm not mistaken, I am also the record holder for the longest Ninjago.
Oh, really? Wow.
All over.
Wow.
I think Michael Knapp was the previous one, was I think 8 years or something like that, and I think I frog-leaped that.
So do you have the record for most number of Ninjago sets designed?
I don't think so.
Ooh.
Because of the involvement with the TV show, that takes a bit of time, so I do 1 or 2 sets per year. So I think there's colleagues who just crank them out 3-4 a year maybe.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I do other stuff.
You tackle a lot of the big ones, like either the biggest set of the wave or maybe the second biggest, just the big tentpole ones. So that makes total sense. It would take longer to do.
Yeah.
I guess obviously you've worked on sets from Hands of Time to today, and we talked a little bit about which sets were very memorable to you, but I do have a question. In terms of the TV show, do you have like a favorite season that was both fun to work on but also maybe like fun to watch as well?
Yeah, I think that's a simple answer for me, is the first season of Dragon's Rising. It just, everything that happened for the creation of the TV show in parallel to the new characters, the Sora transforming bike, for example, was a cool novelty, and all the I enjoyed working on the Zane car immensely. It was a big challenge on getting that function, and for the appropriate age.
Yes.
So it was a tall order, but I think it was great. I worked on one of my favorite dragons because it was so complete with the energy dragon.
Yeah.
I loved making that sword for the Empress mech.
So cool.
So there was a lot of cool stuff both in the set department and of course for the TV show. All the updated visuals, how we got there, the talk about the new story, the new world, the merge. All this took a huge amount of time, but it was a pleasure to be part of, because as I think I said yesterday on the panel that Leo left the team and he was the last of the old guard.
Yeah.
And for me, that was like he said, okay, we finished with Crystallized, and now I feel that I've completed my cyclone in Ninjago. And for me, that was again another beginning of, okay, now we are on my kind of era in a way. So it's I think hands down, it was a big project to tackle, a big thing to see, okay, something so established, how can you update it without estranging anything? So all of this combined with the team, the passion, the support, all this stuff, it was just a blast to be around.
That's awesome.
That was awesome. I guess talking about some of the sets you just mentioned, I'm curious about the Dragon Power Spujitsu race car. Very long name for that set. That one's very interesting because it sort of integrates the gimmick from the action toys of that same wave into a full-size set. How did that development go? Did you have the action toy first, then you tried to bring it over, or how?
I think the idea was to do the Dragon Powers as a thing for the season. It kind of got communicated through the show with the power up of Lloyd, the power up of Sora from Ryu. So that was a core of, okay, we want to have the synergy of dragons and heroes. We had just juxtaposition, if that's a correct word, of what the Imperium was doing by harvesting the energy versus something that's freely given, and how that can affect and grow the characters. So that was one of the core ideas for the season, and then we tried to see how we can implement it in the sets. It didn't work out on everything because we're thinking, how can you do it and how can it affect things, the upgrades on the Elemental Dragon, for example, in Gyro. But the car was specifically an early, I think, if I remember correctly, idea of, can we do it? Can we do something that powers it up actually with the inclusion of the cores? So I think, that was a very, again, challenging. How do you do it? How do you lift that? And it turned out, I think,
it was very fun.
nice.
I remember when I first got that set, just spinning it
so,
around.
so satisfying.
So
And they did it in the show too.
Yes. On a similar note, your other set, well, I know that a lot of your colleagues call you the Dragon Master back in Billund, and the Elemental Dragon versus Empress Mech, the dragon of that set, I think, is one of the best Ninjago dragons we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
I'm curious about the inspiration when you go into designing a dragon, because to me, I look at that set and I see this is a T-Rex. Like, he seems very T-Rex-like. When you go into design dragon, do you try to base it off some sort of real-life creature, or does it just sort of come about as you're going through the process?
No, I think I can reference dragons mostly sketching, just silhouettes, not anything too advanced. Just trying to reinvent what a dragon can look like in Ninjago. We've done so many. Bipedal, 4-leg 6 was my idea initially.
Yeah.
Then Marcus took it over and made the ice creature.
Ice dragon.
Ice dragon creature, yeah.
It's both a dragon and a creature.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to do different things, create different silhouettes, because that's the main thing that you notice when you build something and you create something in art. So yeah, different silhouettes, different ideas, try to make it work. And that's why I went overboard with that core of that thing.
Yeah.
Which I think in Thunderfang, I don't know if I could do something similar, but it was strong enough for what it was. But on the Elemental Dragon, I just went all in.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It turned out very, very cool.
And actually, speaking of making sketch models and then handing it off to another designer to take over, I know that we've gone through all the sets that you basically finished off, but I'm very curious, have there been other sets in the past that maybe you made a sketch model for and had it evolved, changed so much when the final set came out? I'm curious, like, what the process might be for a set like that.
I think I don't think they have changed that much. Ones that I have in mind now would be the Skull Sorcerer dungeons. I think our colleague Mel, who's an old Ninjago designer, he was helping back then as a freelancer. He did a first sketch, then I did another pass to it. We added the skull on the front, and then Marcus took over and did the final version after cashing a little bit for the complexity of the functions and trying to figure that out. We had that one. I also worked on the Destiny's Bounty from Dragon's Rising. The concept on that one. I did the concept for the Saddle Dojo as well.
That's such a good
and probably some small stuff here and there. So
very cool.
It's fun to see things being handed down and how the different approaches, evolve them.
Absolutely. When we were doing the panel, you had mentioned at one point you did one set for the Lunar New Year line. Have you done any work on any other themes at all, or outside of that?
Only some sketch stuff at some point for Monkey Kid.
Okay.
But it's just that my timeline is so difficult to get out of. because of the TV show and things coming in constantly, so I cannot like focus on something. And if I have a weakness, it's probably that I need my time to adjust to different things. Like I can do Ninjago eyes closed, fine.
Yeah.
But when you need to readjust and get into something else, that would take for me some time. So I'm not that easy to jump
Sure,
over.
like if you had to make like a Minecraft set, for instance,
Yeah,
it's a very different style to what you used to do.
Exactly.
I guess I'm curious, you talked about the timeline of development with the TV show. We spoke about this a little bit on the panel yesterday, but I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into that whole process in terms of, say for something like, let's say you're making a bounty or a dragon. Does that idea come in from the writers and saying, hey, we want to focus on this vehicle or this creature for this season, and they pass it to you and you do a first pass? Or do you present them with sketch models of a ton of different things and they say, oh, we like that, let's put that into the show?
We present them with, again, the main story vibe, the story idea, what it could be. We present them with some priorities, like what we feel needs to be featured more.
Okay.
And then that gets translated as much as possible, of course, in the show. And that's why sometimes you see something that's featured more or less. It's the necessities of space. Have in Ninjago a lot of character exploration. So the vehicles are more difficult to fit in when you have so many characters that interact and take time. So we try to find a good balance. We have back and forth. We sometimes, you read the script and then you find an opportunity to say, okay, yeah, maybe we can use this here, this and this way. Because even sometimes if it's not necessarily a long time exposure within the show, it might be so striking or significant as a moment that also gives something more to the depiction of the set as well.
I'm curious, on a similar note, I feel like with the shift to Dragon's Rising, I guess Core right before it, it seems like Ninjago isn't as concerned as it used to be with making sure every single model is in the show. Such as, for example, like the throne on the back of the Source Dragon or the little Zane bike. Has that been an intentional decision, or has it just been, hey, we can't fit it in the show?
I think it's an intentional decision in the terms of we will do what we feel is the best for the toy as its standalone storytelling, and then we'll see how the story evolves. It's also a style of writing from Doc and Kevin where they find it on the way now, how it feels and how it progresses and how things grow through the season. So sometimes things can work out and sometimes it might feel that this is changing the direction too much. Again, we try to align and we try to make it work, but we will always, at least from our side, prioritize a good experience for the toy as is, to have as complete and unique experience. And then, the more the TV show manages to capture those things, the better.
I will say, like, as a fan, I am a fan of that because I think it's nice the idea that the showrunners aren't like restricting what you guys can do, and you guys aren't forcing them to include something they don't want to include, and it also makes it maybe a more interesting experience. Because I know when I was watching Dragon's Rising Season 2 Part 2, I'm like, how is that throne going to appear? And then the fact that wasn't a spoiler made the season more surprising. So I think that kind of stuff is good, while there's still enough from the show that I feel like I can, like, it still feels like they're connected.
And then we try, sometimes, we discuss names, rogue, how do we present it? We don't want it to be a spoiler, but you cannot, because the reveals sometimes happen earlier than the TV show. So there is and that's why sometimes we might fake situations in the product because it makes sense for product. It might not be in the show.
That's right.
We might add an extra character that might not be there, just because it just, again, makes sense for the experience that the toy provides itself.
Yeah, I remember back in Sons of Garmadon, like Hutchins and the product animations was on Harumi's side, and a lot of people are wondering, is this like actually going to be in the show? Is it a red herring? So I actually really like it how sometimes the sets try to mislead people from what actually appears in the show to prevent spoilers,
even like
which is really cool.
having those J minifigures in those sets, where like, oh, he's coming back, and then he did it, and then
it just at that point it just made sense to have Jay there, and because people like Jay, it's nice to have as many of the characters as we can on the new outfits, etc. Because it's fun for us as well. So we do it, and then just maybe it doesn't happen. That's how it is.
That makes sense. And so you were telling us a bit about the development process, and you mentioned something about how like the general vibe or idea behind the season is sort of grown up within Lego and then presented to the writers. I'm kind of curious more on like how that works in terms of So internally within LEGO, do you come up with, hey, this season is going to focus on wolf-themed enemies, and they're kind of going to this like jungle setting, and then Doc and Kevin have to then take that idea and make it make sense within the progression of the story? Is that really how that works?
Kind of, yes. Again, we try as much as possible to co-create with them.
Yeah.
So they are presented the concepts from early on, especially the past years, so they can give their inputs on idea and either start preparing mentally of what this could be, if there's any things that contradict what they've already set up in the show or what they had in mind to set up. So it's yes, it is a Ninjago project process, but we try to get as much onboarding for them as early as possible, because the more aligned we are, the better the experience, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah, no, it's always really interesting seeing that process sort of tie in together. I'm curious, like a character like Frack, for instance, is that something that has been like an idea from LEGO that's, oh, it'd be cool to have a Serpentine Ninja, or does something like that come from Doc and Kevin, and then LEGO says, okay, well, people are probably going to like this idea, how do we then put it into sets?
Specifically for Frack, Wildfire was a character that came from Doc and Kevin.
Yeah.
And we loved her appearance and then the character, and we felt that this can be part of the team.
Yeah.
For Frack, it was something that came up from discussing what the season was going to be initially, with the Shadow Dojo, the ninjas, rivalry, having Cinder, and like creating an opposite team of students in a way.
Yeah.
And Frack came up. I don't remember. I've always said that it would be cool to get more races, if that's the appropriate term, for ninjas.
We agree.
Yes.
Both, again, also for. It's fun because that's the world of Ninjago. You can have anyone. You can have a skulking ninja potentially, you know.
That would be cool.
So this is something that, if we can service it at any point, it's to the benefit. And maybe, you know, within the constraints, we could do Frack the way we did it. Maybe we can do more. Who knows? But I think it's also a nice element to have if you want to do your own ninja, like.
Ninja
Snake, exactly.
Yeah.
There's absolutely no reason why there can't be like a variety of characters there.
Totally. I mean, I love that suit. It's a really unique design. I will say I'm hoping that one day we'll get the version without the mask with pupils. I think that would be super cool. Maybe one day, fingers crossed. Yeah.
You know, I'm a big Frack fan. I love Frack.
Yeah, he's an interesting character, for sure. And unexpectedly, because initially I thought he might be a little bit irritating, but I think he's growing. That's for sure.
Well, I think we're probably close to wrapping up here. Any final questions from your end that you want to ask?
I don't think so, but I just want to thank you very much for your time. It's really great getting to talk to you, and I'm sure people are going to love hearing from you as well.
It's a pleasure, and I'm happy to meet you, Sean. And Chris, I met in Billund.
That's right. Yeah, he was a special guest. Right, because I was brought out for LEGO Masters, and they asked me to. They were like, "Hey, can you send us in like people that you might want to meet or any requests you have?" I sent them in like I think it was like a 20-page Google Doc. And I'm like, "Well, if you're asking me, here's a list of everything I would like to do, which I'm not gonna get." But the number one on the list is I'd love to meet LEGO Ninjago designers and like chat with them. So we met up at Gastropub. I remember that. That was awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's good to see you again. I mean, obviously we're coming out to Billund later this year again, so I'm sure there's going to be.
I might pull the trigger and be there at the.
You got it.
You
got it. I think for the 50th anniversary. Come on.
I've let Lee and Nick take the last one session for a while now, so I might do it.
Well, at the very least, we all got to have a Ninjago team dinner when we're there. We'll figure it out.
That would be awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank
All
you.
right.